He's not who you think he is at the office.
I don't think anything bad about him.
I drove my drunk boss home at 2 a.m. His wife opened the door. What she said next changed my life forever. I never planned to be anyone's hero that night. I was just trying to get through another Thursday. It was 11:47 p.m. when I found Daniel Hartwell, my boss, the VP of Operations at Meridian Financial Group, slumped against the bar counter at O'Sullivan's, the Irish pub 2 blocks from our downtown Chicago office. His tie was loosened, his jacket was half off his shoulder, and he was mumbling something into his glass that sounded suspiciously like song lyrics. I almost walked past him. I almost pretended I didn't see him. We weren't close. Daniel was the kind of boss who remembered your quarterly numbers but forgot your birthday. He called me the analyst in meetings even though I'd been working for him for 2 years. My name is Marcus Webb. Not hard to remember, but apparently not worth the effort either. Still, I stopped, because nobody else in that bar was going to. His colleagues from the evening client dinner had already left. I could see the empty chairs and half-finished plates at the table across the room. They'd just gone, left him there like a forgotten umbrella. I walked over, tapped his shoulder. "Mr. Hartwell." He looked up at me with glassy, unfocused eyes. "Marcus," he said, and I was actually surprised he knew my name. "Good man, him water. I got him a sandwich from the bar menu." I sat with him for 40 minutes while he slowly came back to planet Earth, and then I called him a car. Except when the Uber arrived, he could barely stand straight, and the driver took one look at him and canceled the ride before I could even get him to the curb. So I did the thing I told myself I wasn't going to do. I drove him home myself. Daniel lived in Lincoln Park, one of those beautiful old brownstones with a black iron gate and window boxes full of winter flowers. It was nearly 1:30 a.m. by the time I pulled up. The neighborhood was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels expensive. I half carried him to the front door, his arm draped over my shoulder, his feet doing about 60% of the work. I rang the doorbell, fully expecting to leave him on the steps with a note, "Get back in my car, and never speak of this again." But the door opened almost immediately, like someone had been waiting. She was tall, with long blonde hair and blue eyes that looked like they hadn't slept in days. She was wearing a navy dress, like she'd been somewhere earlier, or maybe she just hadn't changed, too exhausted to bother. Her face cycled through 3 emotions in about 2 seconds. Relief, then embarrassment, then something softer that I couldn't name yet. "Oh, thank God," she whispered. "Mrs. Hartwell, I'm Marcus. I work with your husband. I wanted to make sure he got home safe." I mercifully passed out standing up, leaning against the doorframe. Then she looked at me, and something in her expression shifted in a way I wasn't prepared for. "Come in," she said quietly. "Please." Her name was Claire. She made tea while I got Daniel settled on the couch, which involved a throw pillow negotiation that I lost. She came into the living room carrying 2 mugs and handed one to me without asking if I wanted it, and somehow that felt like the kindest thing anyone had done for me in months. We sat across from each other in the soft lamplight of their living room, and she said, "He does this sometimes, when things get bad." I didn't ask what things, but she told me anyway. Daniel's company, Meridian, was in the middle of a quiet crisis. A major client had pulled out 3 weeks ago, taking 30% of their annual revenue with them. The board was pressuring Daniel to cut staff. He'd been staying at the office until 9, 10, 11 at night, trying to rebuild the numbers, and apparently tonight the client dinner had ended badly, and he'd found himself at a bar, and his colleagues had found somewhere else to be. "He's not a bad man," Claire said, wrapping both hands around her mug. "He's just been carrying too much alone, and he doesn't know how to ask for help." I didn't say anything. I just listened. "He talks about you, actually," she said, glancing up at me. "More than you probably know." I blinked. "He calls me the analyst in every meeting." She laughed, a real laugh surprised out of her. "That's just how he is." "He called our dog the Retriever for 6 months before he started using her actual name." She smiled and it reached her eyes. "He told me last month that you caught an error in the Whitfield account that would have cost the company $2 million. He said, and I'm quoting, 'That kid is the sharpest person in the building and nobody knows it yet.'" I stared at her. "Nobody knows it yet," I repeated slowly. "Including you, apparently," she said. I stayed for another hour, not because I had to, Not because it was appropriate or professional or anything a sensible person would do at 2 a.m. on a Thursday. I stayed because Claire Hartwell looked like a woman who had been holding everything together by herself for a very long time. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is simply not leave the moment they stop needing you. We talked about small things, her work. She was a former architect who now ran a nonprofit that helped low-income families navigate housing applications. The dog, a golden retriever named Biscuit, who appeared from somewhere around the 2 a.m. mark, and immediately fell asleep on my feet. Daniel's good qualities, of which there were apparently several that did not make it into the office. When I finally stood to leave, Claire walked me to the door. "Marcus," she said, and she said it the way people say a name when they actually mean something by it. "What you did tonight, most people wouldn't have. Most people would have walked past him or called a cab and considered their obligation done. You stayed, you brought him home. You sat here with me at 2 in the morning when you absolutely didn't have to." "It wasn't a big deal," I said. "It was to me," she said simply, "and it will be to him when he's sober enough to understand it." She paused. "There's something I want to tell you. I debated it the whole time we were sitting here whether it was my place to say it." She folded her arms lightly, looking at me with those tired, clear blue eyes. "Daniel has been pushing to promote you for 4 months. The board has been stalling because they want to hire externally for the senior director position. But Daniel has fought for you at every single meeting." I felt the air go out of my chest. "He fights for you," she said. "He's just terrible at showing it." The next morning, I got to the office early. Daniel came in at 9:15, looking like a man who'd had a long conversation with a wall and lost. He walked past my desk, stopped, came back. "Marcus." "Good morning, sir." He stood there for a moment, in that stiff, uncomfortable way that people stand when they're trying to find the right words for something they're not used to saying. "Claire told me what you did. Don't worry about it. I'm not worried about it. I'm grateful for it." He cleared his throat. "I'm not great at—" He gestured vaguely at the air between us, which I understood to mean human emotion and its expression. "But I want you to know that I see you. I've always seen you. I know I'm not always the best at making that obvious." I nodded. He held out his hand. I shook it. And that was, in the language of men like Daniel Hartwell, a declaration of something real. 3 weeks later, I was named Senior Director of Strategic Analytics. The official announcement went out on a Tuesday. My desk phone rang within minutes. It was Claire calling from her personal number, which she had apparently texted me the night I drove her husband home, and I had somehow not noticed. "Congratulations," she said warmly. "I heard there was someone in your corner," I said. "There were 2 people in your corner," she corrected me. "And both of them are very glad you didn't walk past that bar on Thursday night." Here's what I've learned about kindness. It doesn't always announce itself. It doesn't always wear a cape or arrive at a convenient hour. Sometimes kindness is a 40-minute sit at a bar counter with someone who doesn't even know your name. Sometimes it's driving someone home at 2 a.m. because nobody else will. Sometimes it's staying for tea when you could just leave. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, it comes back to you. Not because the universe runs a ledger. Not because good deeds earn rewards like points on a loyalty card. But because when you choose to see someone in their worst moment and treat them with dignity anyway, something shifts. In them. In you. In the invisible thread that connects all of us, whether we acknowledge it or not. Calls people by their job titles more often than their names. He still works too late and carries too much and struggles to say the things he means. But he's my boss. And I know now. He's been in my corner all along. Sometimes the people fighting hardest for you are the ones who show it least. And sometimes all it takes to find that out is a drunk Thursday night, a brownstone in Lincoln Park, and a woman in a navy dress who opens the door like she's been waiting for someone to finally show up. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needed to hear it today. You never know whose corner someone is quietly standing in.